You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking to Cecilia D'Oliveira, who's the executive director of MIT's OpenCourseWare program. MIT has published virtually the entire MIT undergraduate and graduate curricula online. And Cecilia, I've got to say, I'm dying to know, why are you doing this?
Well, first of all, thank you, Doug, for having me on. It's always a great opportunity to get out the word about OpenCourseWare. And, the first question I usually get is, why are you doing this? Why are you taking MIT's intellectual property and basically giving it away for free to everybody around the world?
Yes.
Right? It's like, why would a university do that? And we've actually been doing this now for 10 years, so it's not as crazy an idea today as it was 10 years ago. That's for sure. But it's still a relevant question, and getting to the heart of that allows me to tell you sort of what's at the core of it from an MIT perspective. About 10 years ago, when we were still at the point where, I think it was before the dot-com bubble burst, a lot of universities had started looking at putting courses online and charging money for it. I think people thought there was a potential for a gold rush kind of mentality there. MIT was a little bit late in looking at that, but we did put a faculty committee together to try to figure out what we should do online, what we should do with the internet to improve our own programs for our students, as well as maybe to put some new programs online. And we worked with consultants. It was a very diligent effort. It lasted almost a year, looking at different possible models. And at the end of that, the conclusion was that there was nothing MIT would be able to do that would be of a MIT level quality that would be cost effective. It just would be too expensive to take our existing programs and put them up. And so at the end, the decision was, well, we can't come up with any real for-profit scheme. But on the other hand, we don't want to have no answer. We don't, MIT likes to think of itself as a leader in higher education. And I think it was at the very end of the whole process that the light bulb went off with a couple of members of the committee, and they said, well, if we're not going to make money off this, if we're not going to charge tuition for people to take online courses, maybe we should just give the material away. It fits with the mission of the institution, which is to advance knowledge and to educate students.
Okay.
And it's it was something that I think a lot of faculty here, particularly in our computer science department, felt made a lot of sense. I mean, the open source software movement, for example, had really been embraced here at MIT. A lot of open source software that was going into basic network kinds of software had come out of MIT. So I think there was just generally a cultural sense that openness was good, that through sharing maybe we could help other educators improve their programs, and that it was just the right thing to do.
Okay, so this is a very philanthropic endeavor, because what other kids are coming to MIT and paying, I presume, fairly significant tuition for, you're also giving away to people who just don't want to come to Massachusetts. Yeah, I mean,
when you look at it, one of the questions people had was, how can you give it away when you have students paying the kind of tuition that students pay to go to a private school? And I think what we realized, and what has become very clear to other universities in the last 10 years, is that the content side of a course is just one part of it. At a very high level, you can think of an educational experience being composed of content, learning activities, and then finally some kind of grade or certificate or credit. And what we're doing with OpenCourseWare is really just the first. We're just taking the content and we're disaggregating that from the rest of the educational experience. That allows us to say to a kid halfway around the world who doesn't have the money or the time to come here, that, hey, if you want to study the same things they study here at MIT, here's how you do it. Here's the basic content.
Okay, so the way you're describing it is that there's many aspects to the MIT education. We are talking to Cecilia D'Oliveira, who's in charge of MIT's OpenCourseWare program. One of the questions that people ask me is, why am I bringing you onto a personal finance show? The Goldstein on Gelt show really talks a lot about money issues and how people should handle their budgets and their investments. But I think one of the biggest investments that people make is the investment in going to college and get a higher education. What I'm hearing from you is that the actual education itself is not necessarily the main value, but rather the brand. And I think it is true. If I meet a kid who comes out of MIT, it says something about him. But is that really what school is all about now? It's just a branding?
Well, I think it's a lot more than just the branding. I mean, as I said, there's the content that gets delivered, whether that's in the classroom or online. There's the learning activities, and what I mean by that is the actual interaction with people in a classroom, on a campus, whether those are other students or faculty or researchers. It's activities like going into a laboratory, being able to actually use the facilities of a college like ours. Those are huge in terms of, I think, the learning that goes on within an MIT education. More and more, our students do internships. They have opportunities to travel and study at other places. All of these things create, kind of this holistic, very rich educational experience, and it goes way beyond just having access to lecture notes or being able to sit in a class and listen to your professor talk.
So how about if someone's older? I understand, and I think I appreciate those benefits for an 18 or 19-year-old who's starting school. But now let's say someone's been in the workforce for 5, 10, 20 years, and he wants to improve his education. Is that the target market for this? Because in any case, he's not going to go back and do internships, and he's not going to go back and do junior year abroad, but he might just like to learn.
Yeah. So, initially, when you talk about target audience, we thought that having material online would be most useful to other educators, people who are actually putting together courses or putting together entire curricula. When in fact, although that group is part of our audience base, what we have been really surprised about is exactly the kind of person you're talking about. The number of people who are working professionals who are going back and trying to, maybe they're going to change careers, or maybe they just want to enhance their skills in a particular area. They don't have time maybe to go to school during the day. Those people are a huge proportion of the users of sites like OpenCourseWare. I would say pretty consistently in the neighborhood of about 40 to 45% of the million users that come to our site every month are people like that.
A million users, that's huge. So there are other universities that have taken a different tact to this problem and in fact are charging for an online degree. How do you see the difference?
Well, we don't purport to offer, as I said, an education. We don't offer you credit. We don't give you that certificate at the end. So, we're not offering distance learning through OpenCourseWare. And I think for some people, having a certificate is critical. In terms of their resume, or in terms of getting that next job. So I think it's a different kind of a thing. I think we tend to be used by people who are really just looking to learn. We're used a lot by students who are taking courses at other universities, and maybe they're looking for supplemental materials. We're used by people who maybe their professor isn't that good, and it's easier for them to learn the material by looking at one of our video lectures from one of our professors. So it's we're not distance education. There are plenty of good online programs around. That's not what we do. We're not really competing with them. I think the whole world, since we introduced OpenCourseWare in 2001, the world has changed a lot. The amount of information that's available to people, whether they're they're young students in a primary or secondary school setting, or they're university students, or they're professionals. The amount of information that's available through places like Wikipedia and OpenCourseWare and videos through YouTube and iTunes. A lot of these sites hadn't even come into existence at the time we announced OpenCourseWare. The world has changed radically. So I think there's a difference between online information, online access to these kind of things, and actually going through a formal course where you have access to a professor and you, at the end, get some kind of a certificate or credit. Those are very different things.
I've often wondered if there's a model for people to do all the online studying, do the courses, and are the tests also available? Can they do these on their own?
For some of our courses, the professors give the tests. In other cases, they don't, because they don't want to. If they put it online, then
they can't use it again next year.
They can't use it again with their regular class next year, and they have to write it again. So we have about 1,000 exams and solutions online. So you can do that to some extent. But go ahead, finish your question.
I was thinking, I've often thought that if someone were to apply to me for a job, my radio is a once a week event. My day job is that I'm a financial advisor. I've thought if someone came to me and applied for a job and said, "Listen, Mr. Goldstein, I decided to save the $100,000 or $200,000 that it would cost to go to school. Instead, I want to show you the list of every single class I did from MIT Open Courseware and maybe a few other Ivy League schools. I did these courses. I did them on my own. I'm a very determined kind of person. Ask me any question you want. I studied. I read the books as well. And I'm $100,000 richer than the other people who are applying for the job, which shows that I'm pretty good with money."
Pretty smart.
Yeah, so I kind of think that if I believed the guy, I would absolutely give him a job offer. And for people who are listening, don't send resumes because we're not hiring at the moment. But in principle, I think that I would certainly look for someone like that who is entrepreneurial, finds the information, studies it on his own as well.
We actually, a couple of weeks ago, we got an email in from one of our users who told us of a situation not unlike that, where he actually was interested in getting a job in a completely new field, and he already had a degree, but it wasn't in this field. It wasn't in this field at all, and so he actually had studied several courses through OpenCourseWare, and to the point where he felt like he had mastered the necessary material. And he went into his interview and he told them exactly sort of what you're saying. He said, "Listen, I don't have a degree, but I feel as though I understand the material from MIT in these courses, and just ask me any question you want." And he got the job. Now, I haven't heard of someone doing that to kind of replicate an entire undergraduate degree, but there are a lot of people right now trying to figure out how to do some kind of alternative, what they call certification, assessment, that would be a really nice add-on to this whole open content approach. As a matter of fact, there's a group that we've been working with called Open Study, which is a internet site which has student study group associated with it. And we've been experimenting with those as kind of an add-on to some of our courses. And students can register there, and then they can become parts of study groups associated with some of our courses. And one of the things that Open Study would like to do as a next step is to be able to offer some kind of tests to people based on the fact that they've used the content, to actually do some testing and provide a third-party assessment of whether people actually have mastered the material or not. This is, it's not they're not the first people to come up with this idea. There are other sites that are using things like badges. If you've ever looked at Khan Academy, which is Saul Khan is actually an MIT grad. They are, they've got the whole concept of badges built in there based on have you been able to answer their online exercises, and if so, then you get badges for certain things. So there's a lot of different experiments going on, I think, to try to get at exactly what you're saying. At some point, there'll be a framework for that.
All right, I guess we'll see how that goes. We have been talking to Cecilia D'Oliveira, who is in charge of MIT's OpenCourseWare. We're just about out of time, but Cecilia, in the last few seconds, could you tell people how could they learn more about the work that you're doing?
Well, the first thing is they should go to ocw.mit.edu. What you'll see there is our homepage, and from there there's a Get Started button up on the left-hand side, which will give you a short 2.5-minute overview of our website. Alternatively, you can just, browse down through the different departmental course listings that we have. We have over 2,000 courses online at this point. We have close to 50 courses that have complete video lectures available. You'll find a listing of those on the homepage as well. And I'd say that's the best place to start, is just dig into the content. And we have there are ways you can send us feedback. We love to hear back from people. We get several hundred emails a month, I'd say, from our users, and sometimes they're basically just saying thank you, and other times they're pointing out errors in the material or suggestions for what we could do to improve it. So we love to get those, and I encourage everybody to take a look.
Fabulous. Okay, Cecilia, thanks so much. I wish you the best of luck in, as you say on your website, unlocking knowledge and empowering minds.
Thanks a lot, Doug. Good to talk to you.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.